Okay, yeah, sure, Miran. If you want, we can start now, and people can just come in whenever they want.
Sure.
Um, and we'll also admit them into the, let me just go and start admitting people. Yeah, thanks so much. Okay, cool. Well, welcome, Mr. Gady, and we're so happy to have you here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly speaker series webinar. Our guest today is going to be talking about Saudi Arabia's ecosystem, and we're also going to give advice to entrepreneurs and startups on the things that they should look out for when it comes to investment, talking to investors, and investment readiness. This webinar is going to be streamed live on Facebook, and later on it will be available on YouTube. So the session is going to try to be as interactive as possible. It's going to be for 1 hour, and we'll leave around 45 minutes for Q&A. So before we start and dive into our topic today, can you please share with us, Trey, a little bit, a small introduction about yourself and your background?
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. I love connecting with entrepreneurs and the ecosystem. This is not work for me, but it's also not for me to talk. If there's something that we can talk through, I may not have the answer, but since it's a small group, we can make this interactive, as she said. So my background, if I had hair, it would be gray because I'm 52 and I've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time. The first company was an internet service provider when really in the United States there was only AOL, which none of you have probably heard of, but that was kind of one of the first ISPs. And it was a big success. And then I thought they were all going to be that easy. They weren't. Myself and some partners, co-founders, we probably started 20 to 25 companies, had 4 to 5 exits, got into investing. I was an adjunct professor on the side, kind of giving back to the St. Louis community in St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from, teaching undergrads and graduate programs in entrepreneurship, typically the capstone class on business planning, which is where they worked in groups on a business plan, and I had them pitch to live investors at the end of the course. And I was a tough teacher. If you did not get interest from an investor, that was the only way you could get an A. But then we were launching a true VC fund called Cultivation Capital with my main partners. And I got a call, I think from LinkedIn or something through LinkedIn about Saudi Aramco wanting to start an entrepreneurship center. And I'm a risk taker. I had never been to the Middle East. Not risky to come here, but it was risky to leave home and come to some place that I never was to help launch a $200 million venture capital fund. If I were not happy, I'd leave tomorrow. I said the same thing when I got here, but professionally and personally, everything has exceeded my expectations for over 11 years now. I love the region, and if my wife lets us, I'll retire here. So we made a ton of investments. That the mandate, it's tough talking to accelerators and things like this outside of Saudi, because WAD Ventures, the $200 million venture capital fund, now a $500 million venture capital fund, is focused on Saudi-based entrepreneurs or companies. So it's a tough fit for someone sitting in Iraq, for example, unless there's a true meaningful play in Saudi Arabia to create jobs and do stuff here. I've done a bunch of other things that I consider cool at a very large corporate. Created a 3-day professional certification and innovation class that started with ideation and moved through, at the end of the class with Aramco employees. We taught it, I think, 17 times. They had a Shark Tank. So they formulated their business from an idea and then pitched it to sharks that I brought, real live investors from the ecosystem. And Aramco employees really, really enjoyed it. I'm currently working for Lead, which is an SME, small to mid-sized enterprise, kind of supports department. We're trying to grow and scale SMEs to continue to grab more GDP, diversify away from oil. So I'm working a little bit with later stage companies. And then on the side, I'm pretty excited to be working, authorized on the side, I'm doing some work for Aramco Digital, which was announced in January of this year, and it's a $2.5 billion fund to invest globally, but do more than invest. They're going to build companies, they're going to partner, they're going to JV, minority, majority invest, and acquire. So they're looking to, we're looking to create, digital services that we can turn around and sell to the market to Saudi Aramco, Saudi Arabia, the region, and the globe. And that's kind of been exciting for me of late. That was quick.
Thank you for that was perfect. Just for people in our audience who don't know who Aramco or what Aramco is, could you just quickly tell us about that?
Yeah, you're in the same boat with me before I came here. I swear I'd have a 50% chance of finding Saudi Arabia on the map, much less Saudi Aramco. But today, well, first on Saudi Aramco, it's one of the largest companies in the world, most profitable. It's a national oil company here in Saudi Arabia. But you can't miss the news globally. I jokingly tell people today that I knew all this was going to happen, Vision 2030 and all the changes and stuff that's happening in Saudi Arabia right now. And that's why I came in 2012, which is totally untrue. But I was talking to a gentleman that's looking to move here from London just yesterday, and he said the exact same thing. He said, I need to get into this. This is the epicenter of finance and activity in the world right now. And I'm excited to be a part of it, still with Aramco.
So you mentioned you've been in Saudi Arabia for around 11, 12 years. Yep. And can you please tell us about the challenges that Saudi Arabian startups have faced historically?
Yeah, historically, man, it was tough. I taught a class at King Fahd University of Minerals and Petroleum here in Dhahran, the Eastern Province, when I got like 3 months after I was here. And I asked 50 or so students how many of them wanted to start their own business. We were talking about business plans, and sheepishly about 25% raised their hands. Literally the next year, I taught that same 3-9 class, and 75% wanted to start their own business. So it happened that quick, but it still took a long time. But now, knowing what I know about Saudi Arabia, things are happening at warp speed. So risk aversion was a big challenge, I think, when I got here. I mean, it's easy to say everyone wants to be Elon Musk, but what about the guy or girl that fails? And that failure was a big problem. Today, much better. It's the mindset, it's the ecosystem, it's support from Saudi Aramco, from the government, it's companies' laws, ease of getting a business license as both a Saudi as well as an expat or a GCC national. It's gotten much, much easier and entrepreneur friendly.
So what do you feel instigated these changes or changed the mindset from being risk averse to more entrepreneurial spirit? What do you feel made this push happen?
I really think it was the support systems that were in place when I got here. Maybe there were 10 venture capitalists, and today, if you go on Magnet, which is a pretty good source of local regional information, there's hundreds, if not over 1,000. But what came before that, there are so many programs. You've got MISC, which is the Crown Prince's primary kind of entrepreneurship focused entity that does crazy stuff, awesome, cool stuff. The Ministry of Commerce, Information Technology, His Excellency, the minister was previously the CEO of Cisco, I think, for GCC, before moving into the minister role. And the programs that he has launched are phenomenal. I've said it for at least 8 years. If I wanted to start a business, I would start it here in the region 10 times, versus starting in the United States. Yes, it's a smaller market, but there's so many people out there that want to help you. It's an easier task here.
So do you feel there's any interest right now from the Saudi Arabian investors and the ecosystem in Iraq, like into the startup scene in Iraq? Do you see any appetite? Are people asking around?
Yeah, so the good news is beyond WAD, which is where I was for mostly 9 or 10 years, the other investors, I can put this in the chat. I hope I spell it right. I've got a friend of mine has a website. Where's the chat? Chat, I got it. This will show you every regional investor focused on Saudi. HusseinAttar.com. And you can go to the websites of every investor and you can look at the ones that are investing just in Saudi, that are investing regionally, that are investing globally. So I always tell entrepreneurs, if you're a biotech firm, don't approach, the industrial engineering, investor, right? You need to hunt where the geese are flying, give yourself a chance, make sure that the mandate is right. And there's plenty of investors that are looking regionally. I mean, I see deals from all over the region and have to say, the same thing. Unless you've got a big Saudi commitment, it's not going to work for Aramco and this specific fund. But there's great companies coming out of Lebanon, Egypt, Jordan, UAE, obviously. There's activity all over the place. Oman.
Well, talking about the activity and how we can help Iraqi startups jumpstart their regional exposure, what advice do you have for startups on achieving investment readiness?
Yeah, there's no silver bullet, and it differs by investors. I like to say, and hopefully it works out. Every no, you're that much closer to a yes. It's a science. You are the subject matter expert. I tell college students this, 15 years ago, and I'll say it again today. Set up Google Alerts, which is silly if you know about it, but if you don't know about it, do it with every keyword associated with your industry, multiple keywords, and you'll get a daily email of what's going on in the globe every day. I had to go to the library for that crap when I was starting my first business. You need to be that subject matter expert. You need to understand your competition, the market. I may have some knowledge, but I want you to have more knowledge. And then, do I believe that you can deliver on your plan? Do you have any traction? I hate that word because we've invested even as WAD in a few pre-revenue kind of startups that made it and some failed. So look, traction's going to come if you've got a good product market fit. That's going to help with a lot of investors, but there's investors out there that, if they can see it and you haven't done it yet, they might write a check. I look at the entrepreneurs as well. Are they capable? Are they believable? Are they going to hit their plan? Regarding your plan and your forecast, primarily financial. I'm an investor, and we have a social component as Aramco, where job creation and that kind of stuff is also important. But if I give you $1 million reals, I want that to be 3 million in 5 years. So do I see the growth opportunity that will make my $1 million reals, 3 million plus? And what's the risk? For those doing it for the first time, it's not easy, but it gets easier as you go on. I'm big on this, watching people's body language, it sounds crazy, but if I start looking at my watch, or drifting off, or God forbid, check my phone, I'm losing interest. So say something different the next time. Make that change. If you get the same question, how does this product go here and what are you going to price it at? and it's not in the slides, you need to modify the slides. The slides in your business plan is a living document, and you should be, morphing it after every investor discussion. The other thing, know as much about the person that you're going to pitch as possible. If you can build some kind of camaraderie with that person based on their experience, job, personal, otherwise, that's going to help. And if you can get a soft introduction to someone in your network, to a potential investor that has a mandate that fits your startup, it's common knowledge. That's always, a good way to go.
So just to summarize that, first of all, know your
good day we're taping this. I went quick.
Know your industry very, very well.
Yeah.
Have some traction. The team background is really important, their experience and their background. The financial forecast and the focus on ROI. Know your investors, know your audience. And if you can, do some networking and do some informal hellos before you're in front of the investment committee, then this would help break some ice.
Yeah. And then again, it sounds small. I got told it in a college class at Boston College, how to sit in a meeting, how to pay attention, how to read the room.
Yeah.
That stuff's so important. I promise. If you can master that, and that's easy, anybody can do it. Watch for reactions, and what can you do differently if it's a negative reaction or they lost interest. Some people are going to say no, and you can't change their mind. And that's the other thing. If you build any kind of rapport with a potential investor, whether it fits their mandate or otherwise, and they say, look, it's not a fit for my fund, say, hey, I can tell you asked a lot of questions. You got excited at some point during my presentation. Do you have anyone that you could refer me to that might be interested in this investment? You have no idea how far referrals can go, not just for investors, but also for customers. If you have a very happy customer, man, ask them, who else do you think could benefit? Who you really like this? And do you have anybody else that I could talk to? That entrepreneurs don't do enough of that. And it's so important, whether you're trying to reach new investors or get new customers.
Since you already started diving into the investment committee presentation, what is the advice do you have for entrepreneurs when they go and present, at least for the first meeting with the investment committee?
Yeah, so you're throwing me a little bit with the investment committee. Some people do put the entrepreneurs in front of a committee, but a lot of times it's one-on-one with first it's first thing I ask for is send me a teaser, and I get 3 to 4 a day. So you got to have something in that teaser that says wow, and looks different. There's no unique ideas. It's how you implement and how you create and how you're going to put it into your market. There's direct and indirect competition to every one of you guys sitting on the call right now. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you know that on the front end, it's how do you separate? It's a competition. You're looking for money from an investor who's got other options. You're not the only deal in town. So how do you make it better? So that teaser's got to be hot. It's got to be, 1 page tight and show some cool stuff. And then, you may get a Zoom, you may get a meeting with 1 or 2 people. The investment committee for WAD, I think a lot of the other, true VC funds is kind of after you sell the team, then they take it offline. Some people put the entrepreneur in front of, the decision makers, the people that authorize the investment. But it's usually with us, we as investment managers are pitching that to upper Aramco management, and they're saying yes or no. Whoops.
And so, okay, I'm gonna take another step backward,
Sure.
which also you've already spoken about a little bit, is that what are tips for entrepreneurs when they first approach the investors before they get into the investment committee or investor pitching?
Yeah, you stepped into it, and I'm gonna try to hit it out of the park. It's a simple thing. It's so older than me, but an elevator pitch. What can you tell someone? I jokingly say, in a public restroom washing your hands? What can you say to the person next to you, or in an elevator, that gets someone excited? Because you never know. And talk to people and find out, get feedback. Do you like this? Do you think it'll work? Don't listen to everybody. Okay, don't listen to me. This entrepreneurship stuff is gray. It's not black and white. I may say something, and Mohammed or Sarah may say something completely different. You're the subject matter expert. You are the entrepreneur. You're the CEO. It's your job to process all this stuff from mentors or investors. Keep what you think is relative and throw out, stuff if someone's talking crazy.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, usually when startups or founders get the, two thumbs up, go ahead from the investors, then the due diligence process starts.
Yep.
And here, what are your tips and advice for and during the due diligence process? And then also I would, on the other flip side, I wanted to ask you, should entrepreneurs conduct their own due diligence on the investors? And what should entrepreneurs look for when they're choosing an investor to approach?
Yeah, there's okay, so let's stick with the investors. I said get to know as much about the investor as possible before you speak to him or her. It's so important. If they have a big portfolio, I would reach out, to at least 3 of the entrepreneurs that were funded by that investor and find out what their experience is. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be just, one portfolio problem where the other 2 portfolio companies are fine with the investor, but get that feedback for sure before you move into big due diligence. From a preparation side on the startups end, be as professional as you can. It's not that hard with DocuSign. There's probably cuter mechanisms now. Throw your CR in, throw your business plan in, throw your financials in, throw your pitch deck in, throw an org chart, throw the more you have in there, you've got it already. So populate it, even if they don't. I'm only going to look at a couple things, financials included, but the more that's in there, the more prepared I think you are, and detail orientated you are.
So whether the investor looks at it or not, we need to show that we've prepared ourselves and that we have nothing to hide.
Yeah, good, bad, and ugly for sure in there. And don't, you don't want an investor to say, hey, I need, I need financials in an Excel format, pro forma. Yeah. You don't want them to say that, and I'm not a finance guy, so I've always had to hire people that can do that Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. So if you don't have that expertise yourself, find someone that does, get a co-founder or find a CFO.
Right.
That can help you, that can help you with that. But again, the more that you have, if they're 100% satisfied with your data room, you've done your job. If they've come back to you a couple times, what about this? What about that? And you have it already and you didn't put it in there, that's it's a step back, right?
Okay. Well, how about the negotiation process? So, the due diligence has been done, and then we're starting to talk numbers. And so what advice do you have when it comes to negotiating the deal?
Yeah, you know what the valuation is? It's the price that someone will pay. If you think about that, look, entrepreneurs are going to be higher, and investors are going to be lower. If it's lower and they write that million real or dollar check, they get more equity. If it's higher, they get a smaller percentage. So it's a negotiation. It's tied to your financials, something that's called internal rate of return, and the VC method are 2 things that VC investors and angels look at. If it's very early stage, you're looking at a blank slate. You got a little bit of revenue and you're hoping to grow it, over 3 to 5 years, which you should have in a financial plan. And again, then it's too early for me to really put a number on it. And it's an arm wrestle, depending on how much equity the investor wants to take. No matter the round, early stage or otherwise, I think a good target or benchmark is 25%. when I first got here, there were a bunch of screwy deals where the investors took 51%, and that doesn't allow for follow-on funding, and the entrepreneurs become demotivated, their share gets smaller as they raise new rounds. And I've seen this at least 3 times. Later stage, more sophisticated investors, before they wrote that second check after the person that took 51%, they said, you got to give more equity back to the founder. The company's big now. I'm going to write the next check, but you got to square that founder away that you took too much from on the front end. So, anywhere between 10 and say 40%, but I would look at 25%, and you negotiate to try to get the valuation as high as possible, looking at VC method, internal rate of return, or IRR, and then look at comps if you can find it on TechCrunch or Magnet. How are other companies valued in your space if you can get access to the data, public or private companies, and look at multiples. Sorry, I'm all over the place. I didn't take notes, but EBITDA multiples, revenue multiples, those things are also important. And you can, if you're a software company, for example, you can look at 8-9 times EBITDA as a number, and then the investors are going to discount that, looking back, because you're in year 1, you're not at the end of year 5, and that's where the negotiation over valuation, comes. I tell entrepreneurs, I don't think the investors today are going to come and say, I want 60%, right? I think they're generally behaving not well, but appropriate, but also don't get too greedy. If you need that $1 million to do X, Y, Z, and you're up every night and you've got an ulcer, take the $1 million, give them the extra 2, 3, 5%, and move on, because you're better off, I think, making the deal. I always make the deal.
I have another question. These in markets that are probably a bit more nascent, like Iraq, sometimes the investors might barely have met the startup and just had one conversation with them, and they directly ask about valuation. So personally, for me, I wouldn't answer that question, because I don't know if you're serious about this. We haven't done due diligence, we haven't done anything. But I want to know about what you think, and you as an investor, what do you think about this practice, and how should founders react?
Yeah, I could go along with that. The other thing that's important, if you're raising $1 million, you need to show good use of funds. It's usually broken out in a pie chart, this much for staff, this much for tech development, this much for R&D, whatever those things are. But as an investor, I want to know how my money is being spent. So that use of funds is important. And you want, probably 12 to 18 months worth of runway before you need to raise money again or you turn profitable. So you need to, have in your financials, what that $1 million is going to do, how I'm going to spend it, and does it get me to the point again where there's another round, or there is, you flip to black, right, and you're making money. If a lot of the teasers I see, at a minimum, they're talking about how much money they're raising. Okay. I think the valuation is there a lot, but if it's a casual, rich guy or girl, and they want to know what the valuation is before digging into the material, say, listen, I'd be happy to share, a formal pitch with you, and let's talk about it. I'm raising $1 million. This is what I'm going to spend it on. This is what it's going to help me do, and this is where I think I'm going to go. And then you can break into the valuation. But if I read a teaser that I really like, I'm not negotiating before due diligence, but I kind of want to get my head around. It's another touch point. If you're raising $1 million and you're going to give me 5% of the company, it's an odd duck. It's going to be tough, right? So there, when you see a lot of deals, I think you can. I want to see it before due diligence. I want to know kind of the parameters. We've got a target $10 million, $5 million valuation. Happy to negotiate. I need $1 million. I'm giving you 20%. Whatever those things are.
So how can entrepreneurs in Iraq be competitive vis-a-vis the regional startup scene? What are things like regionally? A lot of things are happening, but we want to be in Iraq at the same level, and we want to be able to compete for those dollars. So how can they do?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. It sounds like there's starting to be more support for startups, which I said 20 minutes ago was a big, kickstart for Saudi Arabia. So I would be leveraging those support mechanisms, entities, programs in Iraq, try to do things very well there, and then do your best within reason and within use of funds that are appropriate, test the other markets, right? I've been dealing with Bahrain for a long time, which is a very small market, whatever, 3 million people. And, their pitch as a country, from the Economic Development Board, down is, we're a causeway away from the Saudi market. So come take advantage of all the Bahrain things, and, it's easy access to Saudi and cheaper than Dubai. So that has been their pitch. It's I hate the word traction because entrepreneurs are cringing as I say that, but get something up and running in Iraq, and then do your best within the budget to get into other markets. And that stuff's happening all day long. The Egypt companies, the Jordan companies, Lebanese companies, they're all, coming to Saudi right now. Or a lot of them are, when they get to that point that they can afford.
So I would like to open the floor now for questions. So for the audience, is there anything you'd like to ask Trey? He has so much experience and background on this. What are things that the entrepreneurs would like to know? Please feel free to ask your questions. And also, if there are any questions on the Facebook Live, if you can share them with us. Well, as we wait for people to start,
I'm going to pick on someone. If no one goes, I'm going to pick on someone. I got your names.
Okay, go for that.
Well, tell me about your business. I have been doing this kind of stuff for a while. I promise I will try to give answers that could be applicable to more than just one specific company.
Okay. All right. So any of the founders here, would you like to give us a small introduction about your business? If you'd like to know how you can enter the Saudi market, would there be any interest there? Feel free to share with us.
Someone's got to go first. I don't bite. I'm a nice guy. I promise. I'm here. I said it on the front end. I'm here to help. I don't like to hear myself talk. Let's talk. Ahmed Maki, what keeps you up at night? It's one of my favorite questions to ask. Now you got to talk.
Sorry, I've been busy with the call, but can you just repeat the question? What you asked?
Yeah, what keeps you up at night?
Studying.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm currently
business related. Yeah, your startup related.
Yeah, I'm a student. I'm studying master in entrepreneurship at the UK.
Okay.
And
cool.
Yeah, and I'm interested in the Saudi market currently. I'm thinking to go with the gaming industry.
Yep,
And
hot.
yeah, I was about to ask you about the market, the gaming industry market in the Saudi Arabia, and if you can share with us any articles, anything that show us what's the landscape of the gaming in that industry in Saudi. I will
Yeah,
appreciate.
you picked probably one of three industries that I'm least familiar with, but I'll do my best to again try to help.
Yeah.
There's big interest in gaming and esports. There was that huge whatever $1 million prize esports event in Riyadh, I think a couple months ago. Saudi Arabia, the sovereign fund, public investment fund, invested huge into, I think, Sega and Activision and a few others. There are some specific funds that are focused on gaming. You might see them on the link that I sent earlier, HusseinAttar.com. You should be able to dig in and find out who's interested in gaming. I don't have any gaming in my portfolio. You know, the deal flow has been light, but the dollar and the focus for the kingdom is big. But it's just not enough deal flow for me to see, you know, things that are a fit, you know, coming up in Saudi Arabia. They want to come from the UK, from their MBA, you know, to Saudi to start a gaming company. But you're hunting where the geese are flying, because there's a lot of opportunity, and it's a big push from multiple stakeholders, government down, to develop the gaming and esports market.
Actually, Ahmad, there's an annual research report that's published on gaming in the GCC, and what are the trends happening. I'll try to look for the report and share it with you.
Yeah,
Right on.
please. I will appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you, sir. All right, Ahmed broke the ice. Who's next? Who's got a company? Ahmed is just staying up studying. Who's got a company, and what's the big rock that if this went away, if I could solve this one problem, you know, I'd be able to do X, Y, Z and get a good night's sleep.
How about Rawaz Jamal? Do you have a company? What do you want to share with us?
He's on another call too.
Okay.
There's attendance prizes. That's why they're logged in.
Berivan, we'd like to hear from you. Berivan Muhammad. I have actually a friend who's there. Mahmoud, you were hoping to start an agricultural vertical, I don't know, agricultural vertical food.
Hi, Azza.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
How are
Can you
you?
tell us about your idea?
Yes. So before, let me introduce myself. Hello, Mr. Trey. I am Mahmoud
Hello, sir.
Akwan. I am a training officer at 51 Labs.
Cool.
So my background is in agriculture. So one of my dreams is like to have like a vertical farming, hydroponic vertical farming, you know, in the future. So if you can tell us, you know, about like that market in Saudi Arabia, what is like the potential for that? And I want to ask you, what is the challenges that entrepreneurs face when they enter the market in Saudi Arabia, especially like the one that they are thinking about like expansion, like the one that they want to move from other countries to Saudi Arabia, especially now Saudi Arabia. For the next like few years, it's like kind of going to be like the hub of business. So what is the challenges? What is like your advice for them?
Yeah, great questions. I like it. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, so ag tech is another hot topic. You know, arid farming, whatever, because of the climate here is a challenge. There's two swell companies that I would learn all about in Pure Harvest and Red Sea Farms. They each have different technology, but they've both raised huge money. Not huge money necessarily to develop a product or to develop Kareen. It's money that they're using to build farms. You know, Pure Harvest is in Saudi and UAE and probably someplace else. Based in the UAE, I think Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and they're doing cool
They're
stuff.
in Egypt also.
And Egypt, there you go.
Yeah.
But it's a different, you know, it's not, if you're ag tech and you've got some new special device or software or, you know, drones to do something to help with siting the land or doing that kind of stuff, it's VC. But both those companies, you know, they've had to raise, Pure Harvest I think had a $150 million round, and it wasn't necessarily to hire staff and create new IP, if you will. It was to build farms, right? So it's a little bit different. There's VC investors in those that have done phenomenal, and I know some of them, and Wad did invest in Red Sea Farms. But once you kind of get to, you know, the right ag tech product, then you need to raise capital to actually do that vertical farm, you know, whatever you're thinking of. And so it's kind of two layers, right? You're going to need some upfront money to figure out what you're going to do differently. It's kind of a buzzkill, but, you know, I see a lot of business plans where someone goes out and finds cool technology in China or the US or the UK, and they've got an agency agreement or, you know, a joint venture with them, and they want to localize. There's money for that, but it's not a typical VC deal. You know, we want, as VC investors, you owning the tech. You know, it's your code, it's your this, it's your that. You know, I'm not relying on another company. It's not as attractive if you go out and partner with someone and then localize it in Iraq, for example. It's not saying that can't work, but it's a different type of investor in a lot of cases. How to come to Saudi, you know, as it's much easier than it was. And again, the government is making a soft landing in terms of being able to get a commercial registration as a non-Saudi citizen for not just GCC, but also all nationalities. And the other kind of commitment, if you do that, I'll say this, there's something called Saudi Venture Capital Company, which is a government fund that invested in companies directly, and then what's also called indirectly into VC, angel, and accelerators. And the money that Saudi Venture Capital Company put out there in the market, invested, and it's a lot, that money needs to kind of be earmarked for Saudi, you know, setups, for Egyptian companies coming to Saudi and establishing a headquarters or a meaningful operation in Riyadh, for example. So if you come to Saudi, it's not a guarantee, but you have a bigger investor pool. And again, go back to that site that I listed from my friend Hussein, and you'll see all the active players. But once you get here, it's not, again, a magic pill or a silver bullet, but your options get broader if you show, I had something going very well in Iraq, and now I'm coming to Saudi, and I'm going to set something up.
Thank you, Trey. And since we're talking about Iraqi startups trying to move into Saudi, I'd like to know about Saudi startups. What are the kind of challenges they're facing, whether it's access to talent, any infrastructural, although the infrastructure there is great, any cultural challenges. So what are the kind of challenges they face these days?
It's a great question. Access to talent is a big one. You know, I've got successful fintech companies that are being pilfered by MasterCard and Visa, and huge payment companies, for example. You know, doubling the salary from this venture funded fintech because they're good, right? It's tough to keep people. It's tough to pay people. I'm sure you've got something similar in Iraq, but there's Saudiization requirements. And to fill those high tech roles, those high talent type roles, it's very expensive, and the market's ripe. There's a lot of people paying a lot of money, specifically in Riyadh right now. So that was a great call. The infrastructure is good. I think the support systems, they're only getting better. So again, you're going to have, I got a question. Good. We'll get to that, Mahmoud. Infrastructure ecosystem is booming, and other challenges. The market environment. COVID, the tech companies kind of thrived, but then they fell off a cliff, and everyone's saying that VC industry is, it's off. I mean, if you look at the numbers a bit, it's starting to come back, but you're subject to interest rates and global stuff and market conflicts. There's general business risks, but there's no right time to start a company and raise money. If you got a good plan and everything that I talked about a couple minutes ago, there's always money available. Okay, what was that question? Let me see the chat. Oops, how do I see that?
Okay, so it says for networking, are there any specific platforms or events that facilitate business connections?
Okay, I could pose the question to everyone, especially those that haven't talked. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. It wasn't very popular when I got here 11 years ago. It's becoming more popular now. I felt guilty, so I switched to a legacy $20 a month plan with LinkedIn, because I've raised money on LinkedIn. I've hired people on LinkedIn. I've made connections at LinkedIn. I have not paid for them to do any hiring. I go find my competitor and look for good people and reach out to them. And the other thing that it does, I think the number is, the average person is going to have 7 jobs, right? So you may be friends with Mohammed and he works for XYZ company, but 2 years later you want to reach him and the email bounces back. You've got him on LinkedIn. You can reach out. I just did that with someone today. So for me, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not. It's really my only platform. But now far enough removed from COVID, it's about getting out to the events. Before COVID, this place was crazy. The region, Bahrain, Saudi, Oman to an extent, UAE. Now Abu Dhabi is thriving. There's cool events where there's active investors, and just meeting people. You never know what's going to happen. So if you have that skill set, you're not afraid to talk to people. I encourage you to look for the entrepreneur stuff going on in the region, even if you got to take a small flight. You just never know. And then do it locally in Iraq too. Again, it's your backyard, it's your market. Do all the events. Even if this one wasn't great, the next one could be awesome, right? You get an investor, for example, or a new customer.
So I have a question. Do you have any idea about female-led startups? Have there been any success stories in Saudi Arabia? Are Saudi investors investing into female-led startups? How competitive are they?
Yeah, the numbers are skewed the wrong way. So I've tried to put as many female founders into our portfolio as possible. There's definitely less still, but there's more. And there's, really, God, I mean, we've done a lot of kind of ecosystem development work as WAD, where there was a hackathon over 3 days. I mean, literally 24 hours a day for 3 days. And I think it was 70% female coders, and they were amazing. So they're out there. It's just a matter of time before it comes. But even in the UK, where Ahmed is based, or my home of the US, there's still disparity, unfortunately. but I think they're getting the same shake for the most part here in Saudi now, which is a good thing. We just need more. Good question.
And are there any obstacles that are more specific to female founders than male founders? Is there anything that you're aware of?
I can't think of anything offhand. Again, you know, it's just less deal flow, quote unquote, from female founders, but they are out there, and I think they're getting funded. If there were more, you know, it would move closer to the percent of male founders getting funds, right?
Yeah. So we have
And
a
there's probably,
question actually.
yeah, and there's probably numbers out there to
Yeah.
better support than what I just said. I don't know it offhand. How important is understanding the local culture for business operating in Saudi Arabia? It's very important. So I said that it's my preference. If I had to start a company, I would do it in the region. Saudi, Bahrain, UAE are the countries that I'm most familiar with, because there's so much support. There's so much, you know, thirst for what you guys do. But I caveat it with, you know, you kind of need to know a little bit about the market first, or find someone that does. You know, the tried and true model before entrepreneurship was a thing in the region was, you know, a local partner. And I'm sure you had the same situation in Iraq. And that, you know, has made a lot of billionaires, right? Especially in Saudi Arabia, to bring someone into the market and use that big family office to develop IBM in the kingdom, for example. So many stories like that. So it's important. You need boots on the ground. You need to understand how things work, or have a network that can help you navigate differences. And the differences between the US and here are grand. I jokingly say that I had to relearn 50% of what I knew, but the basic blocking and tackling, you know, entrepreneurship stuff is the same, but there's different intricacies, there's different applications, there's different companies laws. So it does take, if you have an understanding of the region, and then it differs by country, you know, it's kind of regional, and then each country is a little bit different. So it is important. You say culture, it's more than culture. It's, you know, the different programs that are available. You know, where do you go? What resources are available? There's a cool, a friend of mine wrote an entrepreneur's guide for the New York Stock Exchange, and he got commissioned by ADGM, I believe, Abu Dhabi Global Market, to write the same kind of entrepreneur's guide for Abu Dhabi. And if you Google, you can find it. If you can't find it, I have the link and I'll send it to you. But it's applicable for the region, specific to Abu Dhabi and the UAE, but there's a lot of good information. I'd love to have one of those for Saudi, because it could be a living document. It could be updated. It could be a website, not just a report. But my friend, the publisher, did a great job pulling everything together. You know, not, again, more than culture, just kind of how to do business in Abu Dhabi. Good question.
Well, Trey, we are coming to the end of our session.
Yes.
And it was lovely talking to you. So many insights, such interesting things, especially for us in Iraq. Really appreciate your time. And anytime you have a visit to Iraq, we would love to meet you, have you at our offices. You can meet some of the startups. We would really love that.
I would love that as well, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, let's stay in touch. Good luck to everyone.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.